I'm James DeGregori. I'm a professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine and the Associate Director for Basic Research in our Cancer Center. And I've recently been funded by the V Foundation to better discover and exploit vulnerabilities in leukemia cells. We are working on trying to basically better treat leukemia cells. And researchers have discovered certain dependencies that leukemia cells have that normal cells don't. And they've learned to target these dependencies with specific therapies. And so what we've just shown is that, at least for one of these therapies, that it majorly changes the metabolism of the cells. And so we're trying to exploit this discovery to better treat the leukemia. So we discovered that if we treat the leukemia cells with the targeted therapies, they now become very sensitive to additional treatments that cause metabolic stress to the cells. Right now, we know that for many different therapies for leukemias, particularly for therapies like AML, acute myeloid leukemia, that therapies can kill a lot of the cells, but they don't kill all the cells. And those remaining cells, the survivors, can go back and cause a relapse of the leukemia. And this is obviously very bad for the patient. So if you remember from the movie The Princess Bride, Miracle Max said that there's a big difference between being almost dead and dead. So essentially what we want to do for the leukemia cells is we want to take them from being almost dead to completely dead. So we're trying to figure out how to target those surviving leukemia cells. And we think we've discovered at least one of their vulnerabilities that can be hit by a new therapy.
Research.
When I was in high school, my high school teacher took us to hear a cancer researcher talk about his research. And I was really fascinated by the way that cancer cells can essentially evolve within us. They come from our own cells, but basically go rogue. And I wanted to better understand this so that we can both prevent the disease as well as to treat the disease. In addition, I've always been fascinated by the ability of cancer cells to evolve around treatments and to figure out how to survive despite the therapy. And in some ways, I think this makes it a target that's we need to better design therapies against. In addition, I've had a number of different family members who have been affected by leukemia. Now, we've lost several family members to leukemia, including an aunt, a cousin, as well as my host father and niece from when I was an exchange student in Uruguay. Funding for research is critical because research, one, is very expensive, and it's gotten particularly expensive over the last few years. And while in the last few decades we've had enormous technological advances that have allowed us to learn more and more about cancer cells than we ever dreamed was possible, this research is quite expensive, and yet during this same period, funding from the NIH has been relatively flat, particularly over the last 15 years. And so we really need, one, to encourage our lawmakers to increase funding at the national level, but we also need to support foundations like the V Foundation that provide critical research for cutting-edge discoveries.